It was just the woman at the checkout counter at the airline, and she attacked me as if I was trying to get away with something.
In 1987, a major producer suggested burning Dirty Dancing and collecting insurance money instead of releasing it. The reason was one scene that showed something America wasn't ready to see. National sponsors threatened to pull funding. Studio executives panicked. Eleanor Bergstein refused to cut it. The scene cost them millions in advertising and nearly killed the film before anyone saw it. Decades later, that same scene is used in workshops and classrooms across the country. What made it so dangerous? The answer reveals why this small-budget film became more than just a love story. Eleanor Bergstein grew up hearing her own family call her baby, and the name stayed with her until she was 22. It followed her through the noisy Brooklyn streets and into the long summers she spent at Grossinger's in the Catskills. Those summers turned into something like a secret training ground. She danced in local mambo contests and kept winning until people started calling her the teenage mambo queen. Her father was a doctor, and her family lived with comfort, yet she felt pulled toward the world of dancers and staff who worked long hours for little money. That contrast stayed with her. Years later, when she shaped the character of Baby Houseman, she poured all of this into her. The nickname, the summers, the thrill of dancing, the way privilege and struggle could meet in one room. It was personal for her. It was her coming of age tucked inside a fading Catskills world. A few years before Dirty Dancing even existed, she wrote an intimate dancing scene for the 1980 film It's My Turn. She imagined something tender and bold on screen, only to learn the producers had cut it. That moment sank deep. It felt like a piece of her voice had been thrown out without a second thought. For a long time, the loss stayed with her. She carried the frustration in a quiet way, and somewhere inside, it began turning into determination. If someone would not let her show the kind of dance she loved, she would build an entire story around it. She wanted dance that felt forbidden, emotional, and close. She wanted a movie that did not shrink away from desire. That tiny heartbreak in 1980 pushed her toward the film that would change her life. She picked the summer of 1963 for the setting, not 1 year earlier and not 1 year later. It was a year waiting for a storm. Roe v. Wade was still 10 years away, and abortion was illegal everywhere in the country. Thousands of women died each year because their only options came from back rooms and strangers. She wanted to show that truth without turning away from it. Penny's dangerous abortion was part of the story from the very first draft. She refused to soften it or hide it because she knew the weight it carried. By choosing 1963, she placed her characters inside a world where politics and private lives kept clashing. It added fear. It added urgency. It reminded people that romance could glow in one corner, while another corner held something frightening and real. In 1985, she met Michael Terrace, a dance instructor whose life felt like it had been waiting for her story. He was born Miguel Santiago Gutierrez de Lozano in Spanish Harlem in 1926. He spent decades inside the world of mambo and ballroom and spoke about the dancers who moved between wealthy resort guests and the hard edges of working-class life. He performed at the Palladium Ballroom and Radio City Music Hall and carried stories that stretched across 60 years. One conversation after another helped her shape Johnny Castle. His ambition, his temptations, his discipline, all of it came from people like Terrace. Johnny became a symbol of someone rising from the back rooms of a resort toward something larger, even if the climb felt steep and uncertain. A year earlier, MGM heard her pitch and took her script in 1984. Then new management arrived, and the script was pushed into turnaround. It sat there untouched. She finished it in November 1985, and still no one wanted it. It might have stayed buried if Linda Gottlieb had not stepped in and pulled it out of that hole. Vestron Pictures offered only $6 million. It was barely enough to breathe. Filming lasted just 43 days, and the heat exhausted the cast until some collapsed and needed treatment. Then the weather turned cold, and everything had to be rushed even more. Yet when the film came out, it earned over $214 million around the world. All that rejection turned into something that felt like a miracle. Casting almost cracked the film before it ever found its heart. Billy Zane, only 20 at the time, tested with Jennifer Grey in 1986. Their scenes felt flat and distant. Producers felt no spark between them. He looked too young, and the role asked for something he could not yet carry. If he had stayed, the story might have slipped away without ever touching anyone. Val Kilmer was another option. He said no, calling the script too light. Benicio del Toro was discussed too, but the fit was not there. Without the right dancer, without the right connection, the whole film hung by a thread. Jennifer Grey entered the room quietly and won the role of Baby before she danced a single step. Emile Ardolino saw her uncertainty and her warmth and knew she was perfect. Her father pushed her into the room. She whispered, "Wish me lucky, Daddy," and the words caught something inside him. She had never trained for a role like this, so she took months of lessons until she could move with the confidence the story needed. Her honesty made Baby unforgettable. Patrick Swayze was 34 and unsure if he even wanted to join. He had danced in earlier films and did not want to repeat himself. He worried the script was not dramatic enough. He almost walked away. His wife saw something he could not see and encouraged him to take another look. Even then, Jennifer Grey hesitated. They had worked together on Red Dawn in 1984, and she found him overwhelming. She tried to avoid pairing with him again, but he insisted they try. Their early moments together were rocky, and producers later made them watch their screen tests just to remind them of the chemistry hiding under the tension. Slowly, the friction between them turned into something layered and alive. It became the heartbeat of the movie. The budget squeezed every corner of production. They had only $6 million to work with in 1986, when ordinary films cost over $12 million. Costumes came from thrift stores. The whole movie, rehearsals included, had to be wrapped in under 3 months. Actual filming took only 44 days. Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze learned their routines in 2 weeks. Every mistake cost money they did not have. Even the studio seemed ready to give up. Internal memos in 1986 called the project a disaster waiting to happen. After the first rough cut in 1987, Aaron Russo suggested burning the negative and taking the insurance payout. The team felt crushed, but they kept going because they could not imagine abandoning it. Weather nearly ruined the schedule too. They began near Mountain Lake Lodge in September 1986, and rain poured for days. Locations flooded. Time slipped by. When the sun finally returned, autumn leaves started falling. Crew members painted them green so the film would still look like summer. The lake scene came later in October, when the water dropped near 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Jennifer Grey shivered through every take, yet she kept going because she felt she had to. Even the title felt like a battle. Before Dirty Dancing, the team tried names like I Was a Teenage Mambo Queen, It's Only Make-Believe, The Time of My Life, and Summer of '63. Each one carried a different tone. Nothing fit. Dirty Dancing sounded crude to Bergstein at first, and she resisted it, but it stayed. The water in Mountain Lake, Virginia, was not romantic at all in October 1986. It was 40 degrees Fahrenheit, about 4 degrees Celsius, the kind of cold that feels like knives on your skin. But the script said summer, so the crew had to pretend. Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey walked into that lake again and again, trying to make the lake lift rehearsal look light and playful while their bodies were going numb. Swayze later wrote that the water was horrifyingly, hypothermically cold. They did take after take. Their lips turned blue. Their teeth shook while the director shouted for them to hold the pose and smile. Behind the pretty blue water on screen, there were 2 people fighting not to shiver, not to show the pain, and not to give up. The cold did not just sting for a moment. It reached into old wounds and started tearing them open. Jennifer Grey paid a brutal price first. When the cameras stopped rolling that day, her body could not warm up. She had been in that 40-degree water for hours, trying to be baby, laughing and splashing, even though she was trembling so hard she could barely stand. After filming, she was rushed to a local hospital. Doctors found her body temperature dangerously low. It was hypothermia. Medics wrapped her, worked to raise her temperature, and watched her closely so she would not slip into something far worse. She later admitted she only did it because she was young and hungry for the role. She had waited her whole life for a big part, for a film that could change everything, and she was ready to risk her health for it. That lake scene that looked so sweet and fun almost killed her. Patrick Swayze carried a different kind of danger into the water. His left knee had been a problem for years. When he was 18, a football injury damaged it badly, and later, a tooth infection led to a staph infection that spread into his leg. Doctors had warned at one point that if it was not treated quickly, he could lose the leg within days. That same leg is the one you see lifting Jennifer Grey, spinning, balancing, and stepping so gracefully in Dirty Dancing. During the shoot, all the intense dancing and the freezing mountain lake water made that old injury flare up again. Around the time the film came out in 1987, his knee filled with fluid. It swelled and stiffened so badly that walking was painful, let alone dancing. Production records show he had to visit local doctors repeatedly. His knee was drained over and over during the 43-day shoot to relieve the pressure. Some doctors later said that if he had ignored it, he could have lost the leg. So, when you watch him run and leap in the log scene or lift baby in the air, you are looking at a man working through constant sharp pain, trying to hide every wince from the camera. He did not make it easier on himself either. Swayze refused to use a stunt double. In the log scene in the woods, he insisted on doing everything himself. The log they stood on was wet and slippery, stretching over a rocky drop. It looks playful and controlled in the movie, like Johnny is teaching baby how to trust her balance and her partner. In real life, he kept falling. Take after take, he slipped and crashed down off the log, landing hard, jarring his injured knee again and again. Photos from behind the scenes show him bruised and limping, the pain written across his face once the cameras cut. He would not take strong painkillers because he did not want anything to dull his performance. He chose the pain so the movements would stay sharp and real. Those falls are why his knee became so inflamed that it had to be drained many times before filming wrapped. The graceful log dance people remember is actually stitched together from moments of real struggle and stubborn will. Jennifer Grey carried her own fear into the air. The famous final lift looks effortless, but she was terrified of it from day one. During an early rehearsal, they tried the overhead lift on a wet or slippery floor. Swayze jumped, lifted her, and then lost his footing. His shoes slipped, and he dropped her from above his head. For her, it was not just a small accident. It was a shock that went straight into her nerves. She already doubted the move. Now she had proof in her body that it could go wrong. Choreographer Kenny Ortega had to reassure her again and again, telling her that Swayze would not drop her for real, that they would be careful. Still, the fear stuck. Later, whenever they tried anything close to the lift, she would start to panic. She broke into tears, froze, or lost focus. That is why in the final movie, the last lift was done in one real take. They did not push her through repeated tries. They knew there was no margin for error. She had to step out, trust him once, and do it. The moment that has been copied at weddings and parties for decades came from real fear and two actors pushing themselves through physical and emotional risk in a single shot. All of this happened on top of a tense relationship that was already there before they even stepped onto the set. Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey had worked together earlier on Red Dawn. On that film, Swayze did a lot of practical jokes and rough teasing that made her uncomfortable. So when Dirty Dancing came around and they suggested him for Johnny, she was not excited. She wanted someone more mysterious, less macho than the man she remembered. The producers believed he was perfect for the part, but she needed convincing. Swayze had to meet her in person and show her that they could make something special together. Once filming began, the differences between them kept showing up. He was a trained ballet dancer, disciplined and exact. She was more playful and spontaneous, often breaking into giggles during serious moments. You can see it clearly in the Hungry Eyes montage. Swayze wanted every step clean, every touch in the right place. Gray kept laughing when she was nervous or tired. He grew frustrated, and that frustration did not always stay hidden. She later admitted that his perfectionism clashed with her style. What he saw as focus, she sometimes felt as pressure. That tension followed them through the shoot. It affected how they spoke off camera, and sometimes it slowed the work down. The arguments and sharp looks were real, but in a strange way, they also fed the story that was unfolding on screen. One day, that tension turned into one of the most beloved scenes in the film. The tickle moment, where Johnny runs his hand down Baby's arm and she cannot stop laughing, was not planned as you see it. Jennifer Grey was truly ticklish. Each time they tried the take, she burst out laughing. It went on for around 20 attempts. They were shooting in a cold tin building early in the morning. Everyone was tired. Swayze wanted to finish and go home. His face in those shots, the eye rolls and the tight jaw, is not acting. It is real annoyance. Kenny Ortega later said he spent the whole morning trying to keep the peace, calming Swayze while gently pushing Grey to focus. The director, Emile Ardolino, was ready to toss the scene completely. They were running out of time and film stock. He felt they would never get a clean version. Later, in the editing room, everything changed. The editors watched the so-called failed takes again and saw something powerful. The laughter felt raw and human. The irritation felt honest. It looked like two real people trying to learn how to move together, not actors pretending. Producer Linda Gottlieb remembered that they had also filmed a take where Grey did not laugh, but the editors insisted that the messy, giggly versions were better. They showed the awkward first spark between Baby and Johnny in a way that no polished scene could. Ardolino listened, and they kept it. That one choice turned what almost got cut into one of the scenes audiences still mention when they talk about Dirty Dancing. Kenny Ortega became more than a choreographer on that set. He turned into a bridge between two strong personalities. He has said that he spent as much time managing feelings as he did designing steps. When Swayze grew too frustrated, Kenny pulled him aside, talked him down, and reminded him of the bigger picture. When Grey felt small or overwhelmed, he took her aside too, giving her encouragement, helping her unlock the emotion she needed without shutting her down. There was one morning in that freezing building when both stars were at the edge. Swayze just wanted to go home. Grey could not stop breaking character. Ortega stood between them, making sure they did not give up on each other or the movie. His work, mostly invisible, held the whole thing together. Years later, Patrick Swayze admitted that the friction between them might have been a gift for the film. He said that their real tension mirrored the relationship between Johnny and Baby. He was the tough, disciplined one who had clawed his way up through hard work. She was the innocent outsider, untrained, unsure, and easily flustered. He felt that his genuine frustration with her giggles helped create the sense that these two people came from different worlds. That contrast made their chemistry feel electric and believable. Jennifer Grey saw the experience differently. She often said his perfection and intensity were hard to handle. Still, when you watch them on screen, you can feel the push and pull. Their connection does not feel smooth. It feels charged, That raw, imperfect energy became one of the reasons the film still feels alive. While all this was happening on the dance floor and at the lake, another battle was being fought in offices and boardrooms far away from the set. It centered on the abortion storyline. In the film, Penny, Johnny's dance partner, becomes pregnant and turns to an illegal abortion because she has no safe options. The way the story shows her pain and danger was shocking for a film released in the late 80s, but set in 1963. Some people at the studio and among the sponsors were so worried that they suggested something extreme. According to reports, one producer even floated the idea of burning the film's negative and collecting insurance, rather than releasing a movie that might be buried in controversy. At that time, Roe v. Wade had already passed in 1973, but abortion was still a topic that scared advertisers and studios. National sponsors, including major food brands, threatened to pull their support if the abortion subplot stayed in the final cut. They wanted a simple dance romance, something light and safe. Instead, the film had a storyline about a woman screaming in agony on a folding table after paying for a back alley procedure with a dirty knife. The pressure was heavy. Keep the scene and risk losing money and distribution. Cut it and lose the heart of the film. Screenwriter Eleanor Bergstein refused to back down. She had built the story around that reality. She had grown up in a world where these things happened in the shadows. She worked with a doctor on set to make sure the details were accurate. The mention of a dirty knife and a folding table was not added just to shock the audience. She wanted people to understand what women risked before safe, legal options existed. She even researched the cost. In the film, the procedure is said to cost $250 in 1963, which is about $258 in today's money in the source she used, a huge amount for a working dancer. The pain Penny goes through is based on real medical cases from that time. Bergstein believed that if the film pretended this did not happen, it would become hollow and false. The baby was alone in that dark room, moving slowly to music only she could feel, and the light in the space barely touched her skin. She wore nothing but her bra, and the quiet around her made every breath sound louder. She did not know Johnny was watching from the doorway, but he stood there, still and silent, while she let herself dance without thinking. The scene was filmed in a single take because both Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze were worn down from earlier emotional scenes, and their tiredness gave the moment a raw edge. Director Emile Ardolino saw that she was changing right in front of the camera, shifting from a sheltered girl into someone braver and more sure of herself. He kept the footage because it felt honest. Years later, when the deleted scene finally appeared in the 25th anniversary edition, fans said it revealed something deeper between them, something that felt private and real, like their bond was built on more than attraction. People felt like they were seeing a secret that the movie once hid. Then the story moved toward the final lift, the moment everyone remembers, and it came with its own fear. That lift had never worked in rehearsals. Not once. Jennifer Grey said in interviews that she refused to practice it again because she was terrified she would get hurt. Patrick Swayze, trained and confident, begged for one more try, but she said no. So they did it only when the cameras rolled. 2 takes. That was it. The risk hung in the air as she ran toward him, and something about that unplanned trust made the moment feel alive. Swayze got it right, lifting her over his head with steady arms while the music rose behind them. Years later, Grey said she still cried when she watched it, especially after Swayze passed in 2009. The scene feels dangerous because it is. It is one of those rare times where a movie captures something real, simply because the actors were brave enough to take a risk in front of the world. There was also the line that became bigger than the film itself. Nobody puts baby in a corner. Patrick Swayze hated saying it. He told Eleanor Bergstein the line felt cheesy and begged her to remove it. He thought it would ruin the scene, but she held her ground and kept it in. When he finally delivered it, he expected nothing. Instead, the world repeated it everywhere. It showed up on shirts, posters, and in jokes, until it became one of the most quoted lines in movie history. Swayze later admitted he understood why people loved it, and during his cancer fight, he even used the line for strength. Something he once disliked had turned into a symbol. On set, though, the surprises did not end there. During one take, Swayze dropped to his knees and slid across the floor toward Baby, nearly crashing into Jennifer Grey. No one saw it coming. It was not planned, not discussed. It came from pure instinct. Grey's startled reaction was real, and her gasp became part of the scene. The crew held their breath because that slide could have gone wrong, but it looked so electric that the director kept it. That bit of wild energy helped define Johnny's character, giving him an edge that felt unpolished and human. It became a piece of movie trivia people still talk about. Another moment, the watermelon line, started from a mistake. Jennifer Grey was nervous during rehearsal and blurted out, "I carried a watermelon." Everyone laughed, and Eleanor Bergstein decided to keep it because it felt perfect for Baby's awkward charm. The watermelon ended up becoming a symbol of her innocence and the way she stumbled through new experiences. People quote that line just as much as the more serious ones, and Grey later said she never imagined her slip would become so lasting. When the movie finally hit theaters on August 21, 1987, almost nobody expected anything. Only 60 theaters showed it, and the studio barely promoted it. Executives assumed it would disappear quickly, but the opposite happened. Audiences talked about it to friends, and the small buzz grew into something huge. Soon, theaters filled up, and the domestic box office hit $63.9 million on a $6 million budget. Worldwide, it climbed to $213.9 million. It stayed in theaters for more than 20 weeks and became the second highest-grossing film in the United States that year. A tiny movie suddenly felt unstoppable. The song that powered its final moments had its own bumpy journey. "I Have Had the Time of My Life" was turned down by Donna Summer and even Bill Medley at first. Medley said no because his baby was due and he did not want to travel. But when he finally agreed and recorded it with Jennifer Warnes, magic happened. The song won the Academy Award, the Golden Globe, and the Grammy in 1988. It hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and sold more than 11 million copies of the soundtrack in the United States. It became one of the best-selling soundtracks ever made. In early 1988, the VHS release became a storm of its own. It was the first film to sell more than 1 million copies on home video. Each tape cost nearly $100, yet people bought them, memorized the lines, and played them endlessly. Living rooms across America turned into small dance halls as families replayed the movie again and again. The film became a shared memory, something passed from one generation to the next. Years later, the studio tried to revive the magic, but it did not always work. Dirty Dancing, Havana. Nights came out on February 27, 2004, and it failed almost immediately. Critics gave it a 24% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and only 23 out of 107 reviews were positive. The film cost $25 million to make, but earned only $14.1 million in the United States and $27.6 million worldwide. People said it felt empty, like it copied the plot without capturing the soul. Even the Toronto Star called it charmless and clumsy. The only bright spot was the choreography, but even that could not save it. Fans walked away disappointed. All along, one part of the story kept echoing in a deeper way. In the film, Penny undergoes an illegal abortion in 1963, long before Roe v. Wade. The procedure costs $250, and she nearly dies afterward. Eleanor Bergstein never backed down from this storyline because she wanted people to see what women faced when abortion was banned. Thousands of women in the United States were hospitalized or died from unsafe procedures in those decades. Bergstein believed that if you wrap the truth in music and dance, maybe someone will look at it differently. That moment in the film has been used for years by groups like the National Abortion Federation as a teaching tool. Workshops still screen the scene to show how dangerous things once were and how similar dangers can return. Even the lake lift carries its own hidden pain. The water was freezing. Jennifer Grey got hypothermia and frostbite on her nose during filming. She later chose rhinoplasty, in part because of the damage. For fans trying to copy the lift, the danger is real. In 2023, a couple in their 50s tried it and both ended up in the hospital, one with a serious back injury. Mountain Lake Lodge, the filming site, has seen countless attempts and many accidents over the years. What looks graceful on screen can become painful in real life. Jennifer Grey's rhinoplasty changed her life in a different way. After 2 surgeries, she looked so unlike her younger self that casting directors did not recognize her. Photographers at award shows walked past her because they did not know who she was. She once said it was the worst mistake of her life. The feature that made Baby memorable was gone, and her career never returned to the path it once followed. Patrick Swayze, though, carried the film's heart wherever he went. Even with other successes, nothing touched people the way Johnny Castle did. Before he died in 2009, he accepted that Dirty Dancing would always be the work people loved most. He said the film would outlive him, and he was right. Every anniversary screening, every tribute, every late-night replay proves it.